guys, welcome back to Cashwell in the kitchen. Today I'm going to show you how to bake my newfound favorite bread. I jumped on the sourdough trend when quarantine hit and I was obsessed with it at first, but honestly, like, I cannot sign up for like a 24-hour babysitting job every time I want to make bread. So I actually found this recipe and it's still like a long rise, but you basically like don't have to do anything to it. So it's super easy, turns out gorgeous every single time, and I feel like literally anybody could make this. You don't have to have any special tools. All you need is some all-purpose flour. I just use Walmart brand. I know some people are like flour snobs, but honestly this works fine for me. Some kosher salt. I accidentally bought coarse, but any type of salt I feel like will work unless it's like big chunks. Then you're just gonna need some active dry yeast and water. That's literally it. I recommend using a food scale just because it's a lot easier than trying to get the same proportions with measuring cups every single time, but food scale makes it super easy. All right, so here's how we make it. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is add in 400 grams of flour. So I've got my food scale. I'm just gonna set it to grams. And I'm gonna put in 400 grams. So for those of you guys that don't have a food scale, 400 grams is about 3 1/4 cups of flour. The next thing you're gonna do is take half a teaspoon of your yeast. And you're just gonna sprinkle it across the flour. Just like that. Then you're gonna take 1 1/2 teaspoons of salt. Sprinkle it. Sprinkle it like that. You can just take your teaspoon, just make sure that's all mixed in nicely. So one of the most important things when you're working with yeast is the temperature of your water, which is going to be the next thing that you add to your flour. And you don't want your water too hot because it can kill the yeast, but you don't want it too cold because they thrive in a warm environment. So you want them to be active. So honestly, like, the key that I've heard is you just fill up a glass of water with however much water you need, or measuring cup, whatever. Put your finger in it, and it really shouldn't feel like anything. It shouldn't feel warm and it shouldn't feel cold. It should just basically feel like nothingness. So this recipe calls for 1 1/2 cups of water, which is 12 ounces. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that now. All right, so you're gonna add in 12 fluid ounces. Try not to spill it everywhere like I am. Some recipes that call for yeast also ask you to put sugar in there. This does not need that, so don't worry about it. So you're just gonna mix it with a spatula. You don't need a machine if you don't have one. So just mix it. You wanna make sure just all the flour gets mixed in. You don't want any dry clumps. Okay, so this is what you're gonna end up with. This is your mixed dough. It's gonna be very shaggy like this, and that's okay. So the next step is to just cover that with a junky dish towel and put it in the pantry. So really, when you're deciding where you're gonna keep your bread while it rises, you have a lot of options. I keep mine in the pantry just because there's a lot of space and it's very easy. It's next to the dryer, so it's warmer in here than the rest of the room. I've also done it in the oven, and the way you wanna do that, make sure there's no heat from anything you just cooked or anything like that. You wanna turn the light on in the oven. Apparently that generates like the perfect amount of heat for rising yeast. You can also put it in the dryer. My mom always put her bread in the dryer while it was rising. So any of those things is fine. Okay, so I just finished my 18-hour rise time, and this is what my bread looks like. As you can see, there's some bubbles forming on top. Okay, so the first step is gonna be to find a floured surface. I'm using this silicone baking mat that Josh got me from Amazon. It's really nice because it doesn't move. And so I'm just gonna put the flour on here. This makes cleanup a lot easier than trying to scrape and clean flour off of a countertop. So, honestly, I'm just gonna take like a sprinkling of my flour and smooth it out here. It doesn't have to be like perfect. way. Okay, so to free up the dough, I'm just going to wet my hand. And I'm going to go through and just separate it from the edges. Okay. Now that I have it separated a little bit, it'll come out easier. So I'm going to move this mat back. Okay, and I'm going to put my dough right onto the flour. And the flour just keeps it from sticking, so it's really important. Okay, fold it over just so we don't get a big glob. So I just folded it over so we didn't have a big glob, and I'm gonna re-flour the top. You just basically want it to move easily and not stick. Okay, so now I kind of have it like half and half. I'm gonna bring this top in here. I'm gonna bring this bottom in here. And then I'm just gonna roll it over. Okay, so we're starting to get that little dough shape. And the way that you shape your boule is to slide your hand under and create tension. Slide it under and create tension. And keep going like that until you have a nice shape. And you can see some really nice bubbles forming around the crust. And I just take whatever flour I have left, kind of like smooth it on top, and I keep going. You can go kind of like further into the bottom of the boule to get a better result, but I'm pretty satisfied with just that. So now while that's just sitting there, I'm gonna cover it just with my bowl. I'm gonna set it to the side. So before you put your bread in the Dutch oven, I really recommend cutting a square of parchment paper, just because I feel like it keeps your Dutch oven a lot nicer and it helps the bread from sticking to the bottom. Not that I ever really have that problem, but I definitely think the crust turns out nicer. And it also makes it a lot easier to braise and lower the bread into the Dutch oven, which is extremely hot. So I'm just gonna cut a square a little bit larger than my loaf. Okay, so once you've done all that and your oven has preheated to 450 with the Dutch oven inside, you're gonna get 2 oven mitts and clear out a space on your stove top and take out the Dutch oven. So be really careful when you do this because the Dutch oven is made of cast iron, so it gets extremely hot. All right, so I've got my Dutch oven. I'm gonna take this lid off. This step is optional, but I think it makes a really big difference. This is a long, and it's basically just a razor blade on a stick, but I really like to use it to slash the dough. You can make all sorts of little designs. All right, so there she is. All right, and I'm gonna drop it down into my cast iron and cover it back up. Okay, this is just gonna go in your oven for 30 minutes, covered. Okay, and then we're just going to uncover the Dutch oven. Bread's looking gorgeous. And put that lid somewhere that's heat safe. We're gonna bake it for 15 minutes. All right, so the bread is ready and we're gonna take it out of the oven. Looks gorgeous. Remember I set that somewhere that can withstand the heat. All right, and there you go. You have your perfect bread. And you're gonna look for a hollow sound like that on the bottom. Literally hear it cracking as the heat settles.